Aloha and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Lou. I also go by Luminary on the internet, and I'm an official Genshin Impact content creature, as I like to say. And in the past, I've done a video series on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts about the pronunciation of German words in Mondstadt or Mondstadt. And a lot of people really seem to like that series. And I figured, why not compile it into one longer video so that people wouldn't have to go and watch every single video that I've made so far. A couple of disclaimers before we begin. Number one, I am not the authority on how to pronounce Genshin names. I happen to be German and I know how to pronounce German words, so I figured it would be interesting for me to try to pronounce them for you guys. I do think the voice actors do an amazing job at pronouncing them to the best of their ability, and obviously Hoyoverse has a say in that as well, so they can't just do whatever they want with the pronunciation and stuff. Number two, if I do forget anything, if there are words that I didn't cover in this, any people that you would like me to talk about, definitely let me know below in the comments. Maybe I'll just reply in the comments, or I make a follow-up video if there's too many things that I didn't include in this video. I think that's all of the disclaimers out of the way. Without further ado, here's voiceover Lou, and enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. All right, let's start out with arguably the most important word, which is Mondstadt. Now, Mondstadt in German would be Mondstadt, and that translates into Moon City or City of the Moon. How do you feel about that name? Do you think that relates to the story, to the lore? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let's continue with the playable characters. First, we have the acting grandmaster of the Knights of Favonius, Jean Gunhildr. If you wanted to say it a bit more German, you could say Jean Gunhilda, but I gotta admit that after doing some research, Gunhilda doesn't seem to be a German word. It seems to derive from Old Norse, and so it's not something we would typically be able to pronounce really well in German. Gunhildr, by the way, would translate into Battle Maiden, which I think is quite fitting for Jean. Looking at her first name, we would just pronounce it as Jean, because obviously in German we also have the name John, for example, but we wouldn't call it Jon, right? I mean, maybe some people would, I don't know. If you wanted to pronounce it really, really German, you could say Jan, but like nobody would say that. And I think it's more common to pronounce a name like Jean the way that everyone pronounces it. I don't know, but it's definitely not a German name. Next up, we have Kaya, and Kaya's surname is just Alberich, which to me doesn't really have any specific meaning. It's just a surname that was probably given to him upon arriving in Mondstadt when he was a young lad. Yeah, that's all there is to it. Kaya Alberich. Continuing with his bro, if you will, Dilug Ragenwinder. Also a really hard one to pronounce, and again, Ragenwinder appears to be an Old Norse word, and now please pardon my pronunciation because I do not speak Old Norse, but Regin meaning god and Winder meaning wind, so essentially the god of wind. Okay, his first name is a lot more interesting in my opinion, and I've been dying to talk about this because, as you know, his first name is Diluc. And if you look at both the Chinese version and the Japanese version, his name is Diluku or Diruku, which makes me think that they were probably going for the German name Dirk, which you can see the spelling on the screen right now. I feel like the name Dirk is just giving 55-year-old man vibes. So it's not really something I would have called a young protagonist or like a rebellious warrior or a knight or anything like that. But hey, maybe they just meant Diluc and it's not anything to do with Dirk. In that case, great. Next up is Outrider Amber, and yes, they're in no particular order. I thought about doing them in alphabetical order, but I just started with Jean, and now here we are. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, Amber is not a German name. We would just pronounce her as Amber as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think she has a surname, so there's nothing we have to look at there. Why don't we continue with the Pyro character and look at Klee, everyone's favorite bomb specialist. Klee has an interesting name because Klee in German would be pronounced Klee, and Klee translates to clover. Now, if you look at her outfit, you can see that there's definitely a lot of clover going on in her design, and her constellation is also a clover. So I think that ties in really neatly. And again, I don't think she has a surname, but does she really need one? I don't think she does. Let's talk about everyone's favorite astrologist, Mona. So in German, I guess her name would just be Mona Megistus. I'm not sure if Megistus is supposed to be a German name. You could definitely pronounce it as such, but it doesn't really have any specific meaning to my German ears, other than sounding like a cool fantasy name. Sister Rosaria, again a character without a surname, and if you wanted to pronounce it more German, you could say Rosaria. Rosaria. Bennett is just Bennett. Nothing changes. Now this lady, on the other hand, oh my god, Sucrose has a very interesting name, because if you play the game in German, you will find out that her name actually changes to Saccharose, which is the direct translation of Sucrose into German. I found that hilarious when I found out. If you wanted to pronounce Sucrose more German, you could say Sucrose, but I would just call her Saccharose or just call her Sucrose. Okay, let's not talk about her real name, which is... But nobody needs to know that. Fischl's full name that she goes by is Fischl von Luftschloss Nafidort. But don't worry, we'll have a little section coming up later with Fischl-inspired words, so stay tuned for that. The name von Luftschloss Nafidort basically just translates to of the sky castle of Narfidort, so that's all there is to it. Okay, let's have a look at Wolf Boy. That's an interesting one because Razor is not a German name at all, but if you wanted to say it more German, you could say Razor. But it sounds really dumb, so I would just say Razor. I don't really think it's supposed to be a German name at all. Everyone's favorite cat, girl, human, something. So Diona would just be Diona Kätzlein. Kätzlein translating to kitten. Now, I'm pretty sure that Noelle is actually a French name, but just for the sake of this video, we would say Noelle. So not really that big of a difference at all. Barbara! So everyone's favorite singer and idol superstar from the church actually has a pretty German name. The name Barbara is pretty common in many European countries. If you wanted to pronounce it German, you could say Barbara. And her surname is Peg, so it would be Barbara Peg. One of my all-time favorite characters in Genshin, Lisa Minchi. Now, Lisa could be a German name. It could be. We would just say Lisa. But Minchi sounds more like it could be Italian. Let me know down below. I don't personally speak Italian, but I don't think it's supposed to be a German name. Venti the Bard would just be Venti. Venti, der Bade. Everyone's favorite chalk prince, and probably the only one in Teyvat, Albedo. Now, most people say albedo, and I think that's perfectly valid. I think in German we would say something like albedo, albedo. And if you want to pronounce his suffix correctly, which I know a lot of people were always interested in, especially in the videos that I made on TikTok, which translates to chalk prince, that is just pronounced der Kreideprinz, der Kreideprinz. Now we have one more person that I need to mention before moving on to the only honorable mention that I have in this video, but that is Eula Lawrence. So I got a lot of comments on my TikTok and YouTube shorts basically asking me about Eula, and a lot of people already pointed that out, but I don't think Eula is a German name. I think it's a Greek name actually, and her surname Lawrence is also obviously not German. If you wanted to like really Germanify it, I guess you could say Euler Lorenz or something, but I don't think she's supposed to be German. Let's not pronounce her that. I think her name Eula Lawrence is beautiful and it should stay that way. And now for the honorable mention, hailing all the way from Mondstadt but now being affiliated with Inazuma, Thoma, who we would just pronounce Thoma because it's a very simple name. There's not really that much to change up here. Yeah, that's it. Oh, by the way, when I said there was one honorable mention, I was lying. There's one more. I'm so cheeky. I'm such a silly goose sometimes. Although he's not officially playable yet or out in any way. Mika Schmidt. Probably the most German name in this entire game. I swear to God. Alright, let's take a little break from the characters and talk about some food items that I could find. Gebratenes Fleisch mit Sauerkraut. Die heilige Sinfonie. Der Weisheit letzter Schluss. And last but not least, Mitternachtsbrot des Sommernachtgartens. Alright, let's continue with the Fischl Edition. Because she uses so many German words, it would be shameful for her not to have her own section in this video. Let's start with what she always refers to herself as, which is Prinzessin der Verurteilung, and that translates to the Princess of Condemnation. She refers to her vision as Edelstein der Dunkelheit, which translates to Gemstone of Darkness. Her left eye is called Auge der Verurteilung, which means Eye of Condemnation, and apparently allows her to see the threads of fate. Ooh. Her signature bow is called Mitternachtswalz, which translates to Midnight Waltz. I think it's important to point out here that it should have probably been Mitternachtswalzer instead of Mitternachtswalz, just because if you translate waltz to German, it's Walzer, so I think that would have made a little bit more sense. And of course, you have not forgotten about the infamous Immer Nachtreich, which a lot of people pronounce as Immer Nachtreich, which is really funny to us Germans because Nackt means nude. So essentially, it's a kingdom where everyone is always naked. Ah, the dream. In reality, though, Immer Nachtreich translates to Kingdom of Eternal Darkness or Realm of Eternal Darkness. And last but not least, what does Oz always say to Fischl? Mein Fräulein. Mein Fräulein, which just translates to my lady. Before we get into the last section of the video, which is going to be the NPCs of Mondstadt, I would like to talk about some miscellaneous words that pop up throughout the story in Mondstadt or in relation to Mondstadt, and I think they'd be interesting to talk about for a second. First up, we have the achievement called Der Freischütz, which I think translates to free shooter. Not quite sure if that's the right translation though. It's basically someone who's really good at archery. Next is a word that actually appears in La Signora's name, which is Luefalter. And Luefalter is like a blazing moth or a blazing butterfly. Die heilige Leier der Himmel. I don't think this needs a lot of explaining. It's the holy lyre of the heavens. The festivals held in Mondstadt also tend to have German names, so the first one that we had in 1.4 was called Windblume, which translates to windflower, which is very beautiful. And the most recent one in Mondstadt that we've had was the Weinlesefest, which basically translates to the festival of grape harvest. If you've made it this far in the video, I'm really proud of you. Let me know by leaving a pretzel emoji in the comments. And the last part, let's look at some NPC names from people in Mondstadt or affiliated with Mondstadt in some way. This is going to be a lightning round, so I'm not going to be explaining anything about the names. I'm just going to be pronouncing them for you, and you can do with that information what you will. Here goes. Adelinde, Albert, Alfred, Belinda, Bernhard, Boris, Chloris, Clemens, Diane, Donna, Draf, Edmund, Ella, Esther, Flora, Georg, Gerald, Godwin, Gotelinde, Hartmann, Helen, Henning, Hermann, Hertha, Hofmann, Ingbert, Iris, Jonas, Jotun, Jürgen, Jutta, Kreuzlied, Landrich, Lea, Leni, Luca, Marcel, Margaret, Maler, Marvin, Nachtigall, Nora, Olaf, Otto, Pauline, Quinn, Riese, Rolf, Rudolf, Sarah, Timmy, Uwe, Waka, Viktor, Wagner, and Werner. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, maybe subscribe if you're interested, and do follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/luminary, because I go live 3 times a week, and I would love to have you there. If there are words or phrases that you feel like I missed, please let me know in the comments down below, and I may do a follow-up video or just explain how it's pronounced in the comments. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you soon.